He sat alone at the corner table by the cafe window, the kind of man people noticed without knowing why, tailored coat, silver at his temples, eyes that looked successful but exhausted, staring through the glass as Rain traced slow lines down the street, and when the young widow approached with a tray trembling slightly in her hands, she didn't recognize him as the CEO whose name filled business magazines. She only saw him in carrying a familiar heaviness, so familiar that the words slipped out. Before caution could stop them, "You look tired, like my husband before he left," and the air between them changed instantly, his fingers tightening around the porcelain cup, her breath catching because she hadn't meant to open a wound, yet instead of anger, his eyes lifted with quiet surprise. "Left?" he asked, voice low, and she nodded, forcing a small professional smile as she set down the coffee. "He never came back," she said simply, and for the first time in years, the CEO felt someone speak to him without wanting anything, no deal, no favor, no donation, just truth, raw and unpolished, and something in him cracked, because he had been tired, not from work, but from pretending that success could replace connection, from building towers of glass while his own life echoed hollow, and as she turned to leave, he surprised himself by saying, "Sit," gesturing to the empty chair, "just for a minute," and she hesitated, rules echoing in her mind, bills waiting at home, a small apartment filled with silence and framed memories, but something in his voice wasn't commanding, it was pleading. So she sat, and for the first time since her husband's death, she spoke to a stranger who listened, really listened, as she told him about late-night laughs, unfinished dreams, hospital corridors that smelled like antiseptic and goodbye, and he told her about boardrooms, numbers, victories that felt meaningless when he returned to a penthouse with lights on but no warmth inside, and as rain stopped and sunlight slipped through the clouds, the cafe felt suspended outside of time, two broken timelines crossing for a moment, and when her break ended, she stood, apologizing softly, but he stopped her again. "Thank you," he said, and she smiled, thinking nothing more of it. Yet days later, her manager called her into the office, fear pounding in her chest until she saw the CEO himself standing there, not as the lonely man from the window but as the powerful figure everyone whispered about, and before she could panic, he spoke gently, "I'm not here to complain," and then he did something no one expected. He offered to fund a small foundation in her husband's name, supporting widows and families left behind, not as charity, but as dignity, because he had learned in that cafe that grief wasn't weakness, it was proof of love, and as the foundation grew, so did their conversations, cautious at first, respectful, healing, two souls learning how to breathe again without replacing what was lost, but honoring it. And one evening, standing once more by the same cafe window months later, she looked at him and smiled. "You don't look as tired anymore," and he answered honestly, "Because someone finally saw me," and the camera would pull back to show the city alive outside, rain replaced by light, reminding us that sometimes life doesn't change in grand moments, but in quiet sentences spoken by ordinary people who dare to be honest. And if this story touched your heart, if you believe that kindness still exists and small moments can change lives, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because more powerful, emotional stories like this are waiting for you, and your support helps keep them alive.